everyone, welcome to the Jayda and Stitches show. If you are new or returning to Tunisian crochet, we've got a really fun project idea for you today. This is the Tunisian simple stitch. This is what I would call a sampler size, and this can be done using Tunisian crochet without a Tunisian Afghan hook. So you don't need one of those long Afghan hooks to do this. You can do this with a regular crochet hook, and you just need a little bit of extra space in that working area. So if you've got a regular crochet hook that doesn't have a big ergonomic grip on it, that's probably the one you want to work with today. Having said that, you could use one that has the ergonomic grip on it. It's just that your loops are going to be a little more compressed. So a regular crochet hook is perfectly fine. This is only managing 10 loops at a time. And if you're familiar with Tunisian crochet, you know what that means already. Another couple of fun things about this. This is a sampler size. You can practice other Tunisian stitches in this size. Why would you do this? Well, you want to get used to the stitch. You want to play with the stitch. Maybe you're kind of inspired by Tunisian and you want to give it a try, but you don't really want to engage in a huge project. This one is made using 100% cotton yarn. So it makes a great little face scrubby. A whole pile of these, and you've got a nice little maybe bath gift set. Give it away with a bar of soap or something. So a nice little scrubby. You can toss it in the washing machine. Nice way to practice. It's cute. Tunisian simple stitch is a nice dense stitch. Or you could just scrap bust. If you want to use up some of your scraps, maybe you've got acrylics or wools or blends or whatever you've got in the scrap basket, and these only take up about 10 yards each, you can make up a whole bunch of these sweet little squares, practicing your Tunisian crochet stitches, and then put them aside and stitch them together down the road into something else, like a whole blanket or a hat or a scarf or a sweater or whatever. They're a building block, so you can treat them like that. But they're nice and small, so they don't take any time at all. So let's grab our hooks, we'll grab our yarn, we'll head on over to the craft table, and we will stitch up a Tunisian simple stitch sampler together. You only need 10 yards of a size 4 medium weight yarn in order to make this Tunisian simple stitch sampler. If you want to use it for something like a face scrubby, I recommend 100% cotton yarn. And for other projects, you can really use anything you've got in the stash. I'll be probably using this for, I don't know, some kind of wall hanging or possibly a blanket down the road. And I have a lot of acrylic in the stash, so this is just a size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn. I'll be demonstrating with cotton today. You want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and you don't even need a Tunisian or Afghan proper hook for this because this is a small sampler, so you can just use a regular crochet hook. But I recommend a crochet hook that doesn't have the ergonomic handle on it because you do need a little bit more room of space to keep those loops on your hook, a little bit more than you might if you had the actual grip on your hook. Otherwise, yes, you can use a Tunisian or Afghan hook for this project. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. In order to make our little sampler, we're going to first start with a slip knot. Then we are going to chain 10. Whether you're using a regular hook or a Tunisian hook, this is all the same process. Slip knot, chain 10. Once you have 10 chains, you are going to skip the first chain from the hook, insert your hook into the next chain, so this is the second chain from the hook, and pick up a loop, much like you would if you were going to single crochet. Unlike regular crochet, however, Tunisian crochet has two parts to each row, the forward pass, the reverse pass. In the forward pass, you work through each stitch. In this case, we're going through each individual foundation chain, and you pick up a loop. You're picking up a loop for each foundation chain all the way across. We had 10 foundation chains. The loop that was on our hook, so the working loop on our hook, counts for the loop, or is the counting loop, I should say, for the last chain, chain number 10. That's the chain we skipped because it technically already had a loop. You're going to slip your hook through each loop, yarn over, pick up a loop on your hook for every single one of those foundation chains, and when you get to the end, you'll have 10 loops on your hook, one for each of those 10 foundation chains you created, and this is the forward pass. That's all 10 loops for each of those foundation chains on our hook. You can count them up quickly, make sure you have 10. This is why I say you want to use, if you're going to use a regular crochet hook, you want one that doesn't necessarily have the ergonomic grip to it, because your loops need a place to kind of go. Now we do the reverse pass. The reverse pass is the second part of each row of Tunisian crochet. Since this is just the simple stitch, we are only worried about crocheting off the loops as we go. There's nothing extra or fancy to do. So the first removal, or the first loop removal on every reverse pass is the same. Yarn over, pull back through only one loop. It's almost like chaining one. You've pulled that loop off and it's going to sit below that loop there. And now we do the Tunisian simple stitch, or just the crocheting removal of the loops all the way back. Yarn over, pull back through 2 loops, much like you would if you were double crocheting or even single crocheting. Those loops fall off the hook and sit below you. Yarn over, pull back through 2 loops. They now fall off and become a stitch. Yarn over and pull back through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull back through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull back through 2 loops. And you continue to do this all the way back until you've only got 1 loop left on your hook. And that's the working loop, and that's the loop that counts as the working loop for the first stitch. You will now have 10 Tunisian simple stitches all the way across, and they are represented by these vertical bars. So you'll have 10 vertical bars, counting this one and this one. You'll have 10 all the way across, and that's how you know you've done a complete row of Tunisian simple stitch. The forward pass, you pick up every loop. On the reverse pass, you slowly crochet them all off until you're left with 1 loop on your hook again. Let's do row 2 through row 8 now. Each row consists of 2 passes, the forward pass, the reverse pass. And from here on out, it's the same thing every single row. The working loop counts as the first loop on your hook for the first stitch. This is the first stitch. So you see that vertical bar? That's what you count as the first stitch. Our loop is already there coming out of it. For the Tunisian simple stitch, you slip your hook through or underneath the next vertical bar and pick up a loop on your hook. And that will pull that vertical bar and kind of keep it looking straight. The next vertical bar is this guy right here. Slip your hook under it, yarn over, pick up a loop. There's the next one. And the next one. And you're going to slip your hook through each vertical bar all the way across. So we have 5 loops on our hook. You can clearly see those 5 vertical bars beneath each of them. And you're going to do that all the way across until you get to the end. That's 9 loops. That's 9 vertical bars accounted for. Here's the last one. It's right at the end. Now to finish this off neatly, you can just use that vertical bar, or you can put both of those edge loops over your hook. So slip your hook through not just the vertical bar, but the extra loop beside it, and pick up a loop using both parts of that stitch. And that will just create a nice little running stitch up the side of your work. Count them up. You should have 10 loops on your hook, 1 for each of those Tunisian simple stitches from the row before, and the reverse pass is always the same. Yarn over, pull back through the first loop only. That just starts your row off. So the reverse pass, it's always yarn over, pull back through 1 loop only. And everything else is yarn over, pull back through 2. Yarn over, pull back through 2. Yarn over, pull back through 2. I find sometimes pulling down on my crocheted fabric and always holding the work right at the base of the loops gives me a little more control. I also walk my fingers back up the length of my crochet hook as I get to the end of the reverse pass. I try to keep my hands close to my working loops at all times. That also gives me more control. Reverse pass is yarn over, pull back through 2 loops all the way across until you get to 1 loop left on your hook. And it's the loop that sits directly above that vertical bar. You can see this running stitch going up the side of your work. This represents Tunisian simple stitch number 1, working loop already on your hook, counts for that first stitch. Row 3 and every row beyond that, you always start in the second vertical bar, pick up a loop, and then pick up a loop in each vertical bar all the way across until you get to the end. And you can use the end or the 10th vertical bar, or you can use the whole end of that stitch. So both loops at the end of that stitch. I like both. If you use both loops at the end, you'll get a nice neat running stitch going up the other side. So both of the edges of your Tunisian simple stitch will look the same. I've arrived at the last stitch, so that's my vertical bar. I can use it, or I can push my hook through it and the loop directly behind it and pick up a loop that way. And if I do that, it continues that running stitch up the side. Reverse pass, yarn over, pull through 1 loop only, that's to start. Everything else is yarn over, pull back through 2. Yarn over, pull back through 2. Nice and easy all the way across. Yarn over, pull back through 2 until you're at the beginning. You have 1 loop left on your hook, that's how you know you're done. And then you start all over again. Pick up a loop in the next vertical bar, pick up a loop in each vertical bar all the way across. You'll always have 10 loops on your hook by the time you're done. And then every single row on the reverse pass is the same. Yarn over, pull back through the first loop only, and then yarn over, pull back through 2, yarn over, pull back through 2, all the way across. You'll continue to have 10 stitches in each row, and all of your vertical bars will sit directly on top of each other. You'll have the sideways stitches, or the perpendicular, 2 perpendicular loops per stitch running perpendicular to those vertical bars, and it's going to look like that all the way across. That's 3 rows complete. You want to go ahead and work 5 more rows so that you have 8 rows of Tunisian simple stitch in total, and then we're going to put on a little border. Once you've done 8 rows in total, so you've got 10 stitches per row, or you can just count those vertical bars all the way across, you'll have 10 in every row. You can count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 rows. You'll have a square that's roughly 2.5 by 2.5 inches, or 6.5 centimeters square. We're going to put on just a simple little border now. That's what kind of turns it into a neat and tidy edge square. This will let you finish it as a washcloth or a scrubby, or you can use it as a very easy to join little square for bigger projects down the road. Here we go. We're going to chain 1 now, and we are now going to switch to regular single crochet. Into that first vertical bar, so the one you usually skip, we're actually going to single crochet. We're going to single crochet now into each vertical bar all the way across what was row 8. So we're not chaining 1 and turning, we're just chaining 1. And now we're working again into those vertical bars, but we're doing regular single crochet all the way across. Same thing. When you get to the end, you can continue to use just that edge or that front vertical bar if that's all you were doing, or you slip your hook in underneath both those loops and single crochet as normal. And now we're going to create a little corner. We're going to chain 1 and into that same place, so slip your hook back through those same place, the same 2 loops, or just the front vertical bar, whichever you were using. Single crochet. So single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the corner. And now we're going to work down the side. If you did that, sort of use both loops along the edge, you'll have a very simple sort of running chain look that runs up the side of your square, and that makes it very easy to just work regular single crochet down the edge. You're single crocheting right through the edge of the row, which will look like you're working into the top of a regular crochet stitch. So you work a single crochet through each of those rows all the way down. And then you're going to arrive at the bottom of row 1. So that's row 1 of our Tunisian simple stitch. This is our foundation chain row. We're going to single crochet into what was the first chain we made, and if you've got your little tail hanging out there, you'll be able to see it. So you're going to finish working down the side of your square with a single crochet in that first chain and then a little corner. Chain 1, into the same place, single crochet. I'm going to take the opportunity to work over top of that short tail, just so I don't have to go back and weave it in later. Then you're just going to single crochet in each foundation chain all the way across, and these single crochets will sit directly below the simple stitches from row 1. That last single crochet in that last chain might require you to take your actual hook and slip your hook point first through it, just to make sure you get in there and work your last single crochet, because that was a bit of a turning chain. Chain 1 single crochet in the same place. There we go. And now you're going to work up the other side, and it's the same thing. You've got a nice little running stitch that runs up the side of your square. It looks like the typical stitches that you would be normally looking for when you do regular single crochet or regular crochet in general. You're just slipping your hook underneath each one and single crocheting all the way up the second side of your square. When you get back up to the last row, so if you look at it, you can see that that's the last row of vertical bars. This is the last row. Instead of putting a single crochet through that stitch, because we started this row by working a single crochet around that first vertical bar, you're going to work a single crochet around that bar instead of through the side of the stitch. So the same bar that you started a single crochet in to begin the whole border, you're going to single crochet around that vertical bar. Chain 1, and then you can join with a slip stitch to the top of that first single crochet you made at the beginning of the border row. Now, a couple of notes about Tunisian simple stitch. It does tend to want to roll, so if you're busy crocheting and you find that the bottom wants to roll up on you, or that it really wants to kind of just fold in half, that's very typical. That is the nature of the stitch. But adding the border, as you can see, and even blocking it will help to make it lay flat. Tunisian simple stitch, like knitting, wants to roll up from the bottom. So there's nothing you've done if you think maybe it's funny that your crochet wants to roll up on you. It's not a tension thing, it's just the nature of the stitch. Fasten off, flip it over. That's the back side of your little sampler, which also makes kind of a nice texture for a scrubby if you were going to use it for that. Also, you can tell that the back from the front because they look very, very different. You can now grab your yarn needle, weave that yarn needle through some of the stitches of that single crochet border row. Pull your short tail through it, and just like any other project, you're weaving that tail in as you go. Try not to weave it in and make it too tight. You don't want to cinch your stitches together. Just weave your needle back and forth through some of those stitches, weaving in that short tail until it's completely gone. And there we go. You've got a cute little square. It's a nice way to practice the Tunisian simple stitch, or really any of the stitches. There's lots of different Tunisian stitches. This makes a very nice little face scrubby, or if you make it out of other pattern or other fibers, you can do other things with it, like join a whole bunch of them together into a little blanket, into a doll blanket, a baby blanket. The Tunisian simple stitch is nice because it is a little different looking than a regular single crochet, but it's a nice dense stitch, so it does make for pretty little blankets, clothes, things like that. It's a fun way to practice a stitch, and like a granny square, it's useful. And there you go! You can practice Tunisian crochet without dedicating yourself to a giant project. You can use whatever yarn you've got on hand. You can turn them into face scrubbies if you want them to be instantly useful. You can make a whole bunch in acrylic or wool or whatever you've got in the stash and set them aside and build up a bigger project sometime down the road. It's also just a fun way to practice little Tunisian stitch samplers, not just the simple stitch, but other Tunisian stitches, and you don't need to bust out the great big long crochet hook to do it. So kind of a fun way to refamiliarize yourself with Tunisian or just learn it in general. And I like the idea of using these to do something else, like cross stitch. If you've ever done cross stitch on Tunisian simple stitch, let me know in the comment section down below. What did you make? What was it for? What were your feelings about it? Did you like how the other side of it looked? Did you like the way it feels? Do you think Tunisian simple stitch makes a good grid to do cross stitch on? I'm asking because I haven't tried it yet and it's on my to-do list. So let me know down below how you made out with cross stitch on Tunisian. And if you enjoyed making this little Tunisian sampler, then make sure you like and subscribe for more fun here at the Jayda InStitches Show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and we'll see you soon. Bye guys!
Hi everybody, Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.